Explosive plays from every phase of the game helped power the Commanders to a 41-24 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders, but a concerning number of additional injuries leaves more questions moving forward. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I am David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9. Right here with you 5 days a week on the show. You can also find me writing about the Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. You can find me on X at DHarrison82. And I want to thank you for coming through here post-game after the Washington Commanders' second win of the season to check out this episode. For the everydayers, those of you who come through for every single episode, once again, a special thank you goes out to each and every one of you for doing so. And if it's your first time here, I want to thank you for finding the show. Hopefully you enjoy the program and you come back again soon for more. Coming up on today's episode, we are going to break down everything that happened here in Northwest Stadium on Sunday afternoon, leading to the Washington Commanders' second victory of the season, 2-1 through 3 weeks, heading onto the road to face the Atlanta Falcons next weekend. All that coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today we are brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights from this week's Moving the Game Forward from Mazda. Move and be moved. Despite a costly turnover, the first turnover of the season for the Washington Commanders offense, despite some penalties, Marcus Mariota and a cast of mostly backup skill players did more than just manage the game. They delivered delivered some explosive plays to get a very, very important win here for the Washington Commanders. So we're going to start off with the very first thing that I want to talk about. The main kind of point that I take away from this game is Marcus Mariota leading a shorthanded offense to 41 points. Obviously, not all 41 points scored by the offense. We have the punt return from Jaylin Lane as well. But in a somewhat chaotic but ultimately successful performance, I did 4 spots for WUSA 9 in the morning on Sunday morning. If you caught any of them, I did 4 spots for WUSA 9 talking to one of their various reporters about what was going on in this game and how this was important. And not only was it important to show that there was still confidence in Marcus Mariota, right? We talked all week long, and I'll be honest with you, I knew I was clearly kind of leaving myself open that if this game turned out to be a disappointment, there were going to be a lot of potential comments coming back to me saying, hey, dude, all week you said you weren't worried about Marcus Mariota, but that's how confident we were that the Washington Commanders were able to pull this thing off, even with Marcus Mariota instead of Jayden Daniels. And I think for the most part, we got that performance. But going even beyond Marcus, right, when Jayden comes back, and I don't necessarily think we had gotten here to this point, but there's a risk every time you have a star quarterback. And you look at Jayden Daniels, and he's only played 1 season so far, but it was one of the best rookie seasons we've seen from a quarterback in NFL history. Certainly the best rookie season I can think of in my time covering this game. And you have that star power, and you see it from other teams, Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and et cetera, et cetera. And you get worried sometimes that too much is being put on that quarterback from a sense that no matter what's going on, no matter what the game flow is, no matter what the opponent is, we have a quarterback that can always keep us in the game. And that's great to have. The concern you have to have when you have that situation is, do you get to a point as a team where you get kind of almost too comfortable in that idea that says, look, we can have the penalties and we can do these things and we have these mistakes, have these blown coverages because we got a quarterback that's going to keep us in the game no matter what we do. Not from a conscious standpoint, right? I don't think that's like a decision that anybody's making. Nobody's walking around the locker room saying, I can have 3 false starts in one game. Jayden's got me, that kind of thing. But from a subconscious, almost just kind of a human frailty type of outlook. That's just kind of something that I was thinking about during the week. And I think that having players step up without Jayden on the field, having guys have to come in here and find a way to win without Jayden Daniels on the field, really is just going to make this team better in the long run when Jayden comes back. And it's going to give Jayden a better team to kind of come into and fight back with when he comes back. And I think ultimately this team was able to do that. Marcus Mariota finished 15 of 21 passing, 207 yards and a touchdown, added 40 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown. Did lose a fumble. Very exciting play. Honestly, he was about 20 yards into this run. I think he gained about 27 yards total. And he had an opportunity to get down with defenders kind of coming around. And I said, Marcus, get down, dude, get down. And, got a little bit greedy, wanted a little bit more than what he had already gotten, ended up, coughing the ball up, giving it up on the first takeaway or first turnover for the Washington Commanders offense this season. Clearly, of that, that you expect to kind of have better decision making than that, but nobody's infallible. Nobody is, completely, immune to mistakes, and that was certainly one for Marcus Mariota. But overall, a pretty solid day. You see kind of what we talked about, rely on the run, try to establish that run early on, especially the perimeter run game, go left to right, do all these things, and really kind of try to take advantage of a Las Vegas Raiders defense that has been susceptible to those perimeter runs specifically, but just to the run in general, including runs by the quarterback. And we saw Marcus Mariota have success as a runner and a passer because they were able to establish that rhythm early out. Multiple starters out, obviously, for this team, but the offense got touchdowns from multiple different players that all kind of carry the role player type of tag to them. Mariota, obviously, as a backup quarterback. Jeremy McNichols as a backup running back. Bill, Ja'Cory Krosky-Mara. I know, like, right now he's kind of viewed by a lot of people as the top back in the room, but didn't even get the start in this game. Chris Rodriguez Jr. ends up with the start, and he had a very solid game for himself, even though he didn't score. Ja'Cory Krosky-Mara gets a touchdown, and wide receiver Luke McCaffrey. I remember going back to last year in Luke's rookie season, man, every single week, whether it was a YouTube comment, a Twitter comment, or an insider text, someone was hitting me up saying, like, this has got to be the week Luke gets his first touchdown. Well, that week finally came, week 3, and I got to give a shout out to one of our insiders. Honestly, I can't remember which one it is right now. I wish I remember so I can give you your flowers appropriately, but you know who you are. One of the insiders said that with Noah Brown out, he felt like this was going to be an opportunity for Luke McCaffrey to step up. Obviously has a lot of banked reps with Marcus Mariota going back to last season, and obviously and this season as well, training camp, when Marcus was healthy enough to participate in all that stuff. And sure enough, Luke McCaffrey, first career touchdown catch, 42 yards, really kind of helped to put away the Raiders, who were trying to mount a comeback effort of sorts. Super happy for Luke McCaffrey. For those of you who don't know, Luke McCaffrey and I come from the same town. I am much older than Luke, so no, we did not go to school together. No, we don't have any mutual friends. We met when he got drafted by the Washington. Showing through there. So I had to dap up Luke McCaffrey a little bit, congratulate him on his touchdown and all those things. So yeah, a lot of role players stepping up and doing exactly what I thought this team needed to do in this situation. Find other players to step up. We know Terry is great. We know Zach Ertz is reliable. We know Jayden Daniels is great on offense specifically. Find other guys that can help you get this done on an NFL stage, and I think they did that on Sunday. Offense overall produced over 400 total net yards, including 201 on the ground. That's 2 games out of 3 this season that the offense has produced over 200 yards rushing. Yes, they came against the Giants. Yes, they came against the Raiders, but it just shows you the kind of mentality this team wants to adopt. Converted 50% of their third downs, 5 for 10 on that crucial down. So the explosive, resilient offensive performance was thrilling to watch. And speaking of winning, Prize Picks is the easiest way to cash in on your football knowledge. We'll talk about that, more key plays, and some themes from today's win. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Like I said, today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I, we make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right in your decision means cashing in with football back. Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can take your takes and turn them into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, of course. It's my favorite way, or one of my favorite ways, to follow along with football. You could have taken Jeremy McNichols for more than his rushing yard projection, and you would have won that on a single 60-yard touchdown run where he broke every single tackle. I told him, I'm pretty sure Geno Smith even tried to get out there at some point to tackle him and just couldn't make it happen. It's that quick. It's that easy. And don't forget, you get max discounts on players on September 21st. This Sunday, it was Patrick Mahomes. It'll be others in the future. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On NFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. While the final score looks dominant, right? Certainly looks dominant. The game was a very chaotic mix of brilliant takeaways and frustrating mistakes that need to be broken down. Takeaways, not takeaways from the defense, because unfortunately we still don't have any turnover source by the defense, but takeaways as in information that we're going to draw from the game. So we're going to go through 6 of those here. We're going to go through 3 takeaways. We're going to go through 3 key plays as our next segment here on the show. We're going to do, it's a classic for a reason. The good, we're going to do the bad, and we're going to do the ugly here. We're going to start with the good because I want to keep the good vibes rolling, man. I want to start with the good. Washington, it was a complete team effort, right? At some point in time during this game on Sunday against the Las Vegas Raiders, each of the 3 phases was dominant at some point. Offense, special teams, defense. Even if it's only for a spurt, we're very dominant. Now, at other points in the game, the offense, special teams, defense also faltered and let the team down, to a certain extent, to varying degrees. But it's a complete team effort. I think that's incredibly important. Starting right off the bat, an explosive kickoff return set up the first score of the game for the Washington Commanders. A punt return, straight up touchdown, 90-yard return by rookie Jaylin Lane. We'll talk more about that here in just a minute. And the defense, when it mattered the most, when the game still kind of hung in the balance the most, was very suffocating, prevented the Las Vegas Raiders offense from getting anything going. And then the offense delivered timely touchdowns from multiple players. 10-10 tie going into halftime, 24-0 in the third quarter. The Washington Commanders outscored the Las Vegas Raiders. And that quarter right there really just kind of turned the tables, because I think the Washington Commanders, a few insiders were texting me like, man, this game feels like it should be like 21-3 Commanders at halftime, yet it was 10-10 due to some of these chaotic up and downs, back and forth that we're talking about here on this show. So that's the good takeaway. Complete total team win. Again, it's week 3. Everybody wants to continue growing. Everybody wants to continue getting better. But you have periods in this game where each phase of the game was dominant for the Washington Commanders, and that's certainly a great positive takeaway from it. Now we get to the bad. Mounting injuries. The injuries just keep piling up, man. Key players. Terry McLaurin left the game with an injury. Marshawn Lattimore, Will Harris, Percy Butler, Trey Amos, all left with injuries, which is going to cast a little bit of a shadow over this thing as we move on into the week if these things linger. Trey Amos, Will Harris, Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, that's 3 of your 5 starting secondary players, right? You count your nickel as a starter, which most teams do these days. Mikey Sainterstill certainly counted as a starter among this Washington Commanders roster. 3 of your 5 starters are leaving this game wounded, and that's not good. That's not something, obviously, that anybody wants. So certainly some concerns there that we're going to have to address with Dan Quinn as we get into the week, and just kind of monitor as we get towards Atlanta, because you got the Atlanta Falcons, and then you got to go to the West Coast with the Los Angeles Chargers, so on and so forth. The bye week is not coming until, mid-November. So this team's got to keep finding a way to overcome some of these injuries, as they did, here on Sunday against the Las Vegas Raiders. The final takeaway, the ugly, right? So we did the good, the team win, the team, dominance in certain phases at certain times. The ugly, the injury, the injuries, which you never want, or the bad rather. Now we do the ugly, which is the lack of discipline. That is still kind of the most significant weakness for this team. Despite the win, you have a fumble, you got a missed field goal, and you got 7 penalties today. And honestly, when you have 7 penalties, it doesn't even matter if you have more or less than your opponent. 7 penalties is way too much. Obviously, you had the giveaway from the offensive side of things, and you got the missed field goal. And I know I'm with you. Look, if you're an everydayer, you already know I've been wanting this team to bring in competition for kicker Matt Gay since training camp. These other misses that he's had here in games and even in preseason, all that stuff. I know a lot of you have kind of gotten on board since then. As soon as he missed that field goal, I heard some boos from the crowd here at Northwest Stadium. I got a lot of texts from insiders. I saw the tweets. We were all talking about it. Look, he made a lot of kicks after that. There was one kick that he made where Pete Carroll actually called timeout to try to ice him. He missed that kick there at the end of the half. And then he comes back and makes the kick where Pete Carroll couldn't ice him, which, so many times that happens to coaches when they try to pull those tricks, which I think is kind of funny, to be honest with you, when it happens. We'll see. We'll see what the Commanders decide to do. We'll see if that was enough to save Matt Gay for another day. He certainly got a lot of opportunities to kick more field goals, kick more extra points, and all that stuff. And you like that he was able to bounce back and be consistent, but you just worry about the game where that one field goal is going to be a huge, costly miss that you really can't afford to have. So that, of course, was the ugly. We'll see how the Washington Commanders address that moving forward, starting on Monday. Key play number 1, the historic dagger is what I'm going to call this one. It is the Jaylin Lane 90-yard punt return for a touchdown. According to Elias Sports, Jaylin Lane is the first Washington rookie to record a punt return touchdown since Desmond Howard in 1992. It was an explosive, historic play that created a 3-possession lead in today's game. And it was really kind of the moment to me that this game, I said, okay, boom, the Washington Commanders have this game. The Las Vegas Raiders aren't going to be able to kind of get back in this and steal this one from them. The Raiders did mount a pretty valiant comeback attempt. I'll give them some credit for doing that. But I think that punt return really, even with that comeback attempt, the punt return really just kind of squashed any realistic hopes, I should put it, that the Vegas Raiders were going to be able to kind of come back in this game. Key play number 2, an offensive exclamation point, 42-yard touchdown pass from Marcus Mariota to Luke McCaffrey on a 3rd down play, 3rd and 6. We talked about that Raiders comeback attempt, that 42-yard touchdown from Marcus Mariota to Luke McCaffrey. Again, the first touchdown in Luke McCaffrey's career, really kind of put the nail in the coffin for the Raiders. Said, okay, nice try. You got back within a couple of scores, tried an onside kick and do all these things. But at the end of the day, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. We're going to go ahead and just put this thing away here. And that was ultimately, essentially, just the end of the conversation there. Key play number 3, we're going to the defense here. Again, we talked about this being a team win in the good. So let's make the 3 key plays come from each phase. Special teams, punt return, offensive 42-yard touchdown to really put the game away there at the end. And key play number 3 is going to come from the defense. The defense was dominant for 3 quarters, recorded 5 sacks early on with 4 different players. Bobby Wagner had a couple. Dorrance Armstrong getting another sack. Dorrance Armstrong now has a sack in every single game this season, continues to be on pace for 17. He's now 5.5 sacks away from matching a career high, which is 8.5. Von Miller came in and did what Von Miller is designed to do, put up threes, right? Those threes in the NFL are sacks, according to Von Miller, came in there and did that. And Javonte Jean-Baptiste, with the absence of Dietrich Wise Jr., with him getting injured, you hate to see Dietrich Wise injured, obviously, but you love to see a guy like Javonte Jean-Baptiste stepping up for the defense and getting a critical sack. And, of course, the Hall of Famer Bobby Wagner. I'll tell you what, I asked Bobby Wagner after the game and said, hey, like, you're lined up in the A-gap. You're a Hall of Fame linebacker. Are you surprised that team just comes and lets you run free? And he said, honestly, no. He's like, because it was their scheme. He said, the funny thing is he's at the line of scrimmage calling out their play. He's literally telling them, this is what you're about to run, and I'm about to wreck it because I know what you're about to run. Sure enough, the Raiders run it. Bobby Wagner runs right through the A-gap, completely untouched. Geno Smith has no opportunity. Geno's the kind of guy who loves to try to throw the ball away, tries to dirt it or whatever, had no time, just had no opportunity to do it. Arguably one of the fastest sacks Bobby Wagner has had in recent memory. And he said, I called it out. And he said one of their guys came up to him after the play and was like, dude, like, how did you know? He's like, cuz, man, he's like, I saw it. I studied it. I know you. I know what you're doing. And obviously, Bobby knew what he was doing. It's why he's a Hall of Famer, right? It's why he does what he does. So that defensive wall, Ashton Jeanty, I don't know that this is the best game that he's had as a pro. I feel like it probably is overall. But for the most part, I mean, it's like 2 or 3 chunk plays there that they got. A lot of that coming in a period of time where the Commanders are basically playing, not prevent defense, but certainly trying to just, play against the pass and keep them from getting even bigger chunks through the passing game. And Ashton Jeanty able to find some lanes. But overall, certainly Ashton Jeanty and that Raiders run offense absolutely stifled by the Washington Commanders defensive front. Now, before we hand out our game balls and see who really shine, let's take a look at some wagers as we move forward with today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you in part by Mazda, and Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just simply put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, Jaylin Lane's 90-yard punt return touchdown. The offense had just gone 3 and out. The game was still within reach, technically, for the Las Vegas Raiders. And Jaylin Lane's electric return was a jolt of energy that not only put a touchdown up on the board, but showed that this team has the capability of winning using multiple phases of their attack. It was a moment that defined the team's resilience, the next man up mentality. And for a rookie to do something this franchise hasn't seen done in a long, long time, absolutely keeps your fans moving forward. This place was rocking. There was a flag on the field, so everybody kind of had a moment of hold your breath. But once it came out that was a Raiders penalty, everybody moved on. Another honorable mention, certainly can't go without this. Marcus Mariota pushed out of bounds, runs into Dan Quinn. Dan takes it right on the nose, falls back, hits his head on the ground. A really scary moment for the coach, really scary moment up here for all of us. Good to see that he was okay. But man, that resiliency, a lot of players are talking about that. I'm actually going to write an article about it for WUSA 9. So if you want to check that out here in just a little while, you can do that. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for every kickoff with can't-miss offers. And right now, new customers, you bet just $5, and if that $5 bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. For me, I like player props, and I like using them to build same-game parlays. So that's how I do. I also do game picks where sometimes I pick 4, sometimes I pick the entire week. It just kind of depends on how I feel. And that's the great thing is FanDuel, I can make that decision. After the Raiders scored to make it 34-24, you could have jumped on a live bet for the Commanders to score again, and you could have cashed in on Luke McCaffrey's first career touchdown. It's quick, it's easy, and it adds a whole other level of energy to your Sundays or your Mondays or your Thursdays, even though I don't like the Thursdays, but at least you get them, right? So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bets. In a game filled with so many big plays from so many different players, picking just 3 stars is very difficult. So we're going to kind of group at least some of these together because a few performances definitely stood out above the rest. So segment 3 stars. We do this hockey style. 3rd star, 2nd star, 1st star. All the stars here today are coming from the Washington Commanders because you know what? They stinking earned it. And when you know, one's coming from the defense, one's coming from the offense, one's coming from the special teams. Our 3rd star of the game is going to be linebacker Bobby Wagner, veteran leader. He was a force on the field, led the team with 11 tackles, recorded 2 sacks, anchored a defense that dominated in the most crucial stretches of the game while the Raiders were still in it and the Commanders were trying to pull away from it or with it. And he became just the 3rd player in NFL history to record over 1,100 tackles and 100 tackle for losses in a career. So truly a legendary career for Bobby Wagner continuing here on Sunday and week 3. Our 2nd star is going to be the entire running back room. It's collective effort. Jeremy McNichols got the explosive 60-yard touchdown where he broke pretty much every tackle from every Raiders defender in the stadium. Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt punched in a score. Chris Rodriguez Jr. set the tone as the starting running back, also helped close out the game, combining for 143 yards rushing as a trio and 3 offensive touchdowns on the ground. Marcus Mariota adding in there over 200 yards of rushing in week 3 for the Washington Commanders, but we're going to highlight the running back specifically there. And then finally, our 1st star, wide receiver, punt returner, Jaylin Lane. Again, that historic punt return for the Washington Commanders. You'll love it. Look, I had talked to him before the season started. I said, hey, man, you become a really good punt returner for this team, and they're going to start playing Enter Sandman out here for you every time you go back there to return a punt. He said, man, that would be amazing. Well, if you were here week 1, guess what? They're playing Enter Sandman when we enter the 4th quarter here in Northwest Stadium. And it's not for Jaylin Lane specific, but I'll be darned if it's not one heck of a coincidence that those 2 things are happening at the same time. My final thought for this game as I leave here, again, main takeaway is this team learning to win beyond Jayden Daniels. And again, I don't think it's something that is necessarily at the conscious forefront of everybody's minds, but I do think that when you have a star quarterback, it is important for teams to remember that sometimes it takes more than just that star quarterback. And today, whether it be Marcus Mariota, Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt, Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez, Luke McCaffrey, punt returns, defense standing up, man. I think it was just a great team win that's going to help make this team better if they can get healthier along the way. And we will monitor that situation, of course, moving forward. That's going to do it for today's post-game episode of Locked On Commanders. Next time on Locked On Commanders, we're going to dive even deeper. We're going to look back at our game plan, see what worked, see what didn't work, and see what lessons we can take away for the future. In the meantime, if you've got questions, we've got a mailbag episode come up later this week. Insiders, you can send me your questions as you wish. I will also call for them. If you want to get involved in those, all you got to do is go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders, participate in the mailbags, participate in our pre and post game Zoom conferences, and you get so much more from that as well. Before the game, Insiders got a little bit of inside information that is not going on the show. So if you want to get in on that, again, joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. NFL season is here and rolling. Tyler Rowland and Tony Wiggins take you through the day every day, twice a day, Monday through Friday on Locked On NFL. So find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. To the everydayers, I see you. I appreciate you every day. And I thank you especially for coming through yet again today. Everybody out there, until next time, stay safe, be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.